Thank you everyone for joining us. We are going to today talk about integrating Indigo Design with App Builder. I brought in the big guns today. Konstantin Dinev is our Director of Product Development. He is actually the architect of this feature and runs the teams that actually built it. So we have a 30-minute webinar today. We're going to show a few slides, then get right to the demos because we want to spend most of the time there. So a quick agenda here. We're going to show all the integrations with App Builder and Indigo Design, which is pretty slick, a very useful feature. And of course, most of you are using tools like this. So you'll probably appreciate the capabilities that you have. Webinar recording and slides will be available after the webinar. There's no use really to the slides, but we post them anyway because today's mostly demo. So you'll probably want to share the recording with your folks. And then I've got question windows open as well. So please ask questions during the session. We'll get to all of them. And then we also have a poll at the end. We have 7 questions in the poll. It kind of helps us frame future webinars and product features. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So App Builder, again, as a quick reminder, everyone got an email yesterday with a quick video to watch. It's like a 2-minute sizzle video, but just really quick, App Builder is a 100% cloud-based WYSIWYG IDE. So everything's in the cloud. There's no desktop version where like we had this other product called Indigo Studio, which was absolutely a desktop product. This is cloud-based. Runs in any browser or actually runs in Edge and Chrome. You know, you can run it on your M1 Mac. I have a Mac. I use Edge. I use Chrome. It works perfectly. You run it on Windows PC, of course, it'll run on anything. So it doesn't really matter the hardware. We have a toolbox full of UI components that map to our UI control kit. They all have property editors for configuration. We've got theming. We've got data access. Now we are going to show today integration with GitHub. But the idea is that this is a low-code tool that helps you with all the stuff that you don't want to hand code, like screen design, with some extras like integrating data, integrating with GitHub, doing themes and styles, but it also generates Angular apps at the same time. In the future, later this year, October, November, we're going to ship Blazor and React. So if you want to generate a Blazor app off of the same design, you'll be able to do that. If you want to generate a React app off the same design, you'll be able to do that. So we're going to continue to add these language features, and then we're going to continue to add ease of use features like new templates, new layouts, new sample apps, and just continue to make this something where at the end of the day, you don't really have to think. You just start adding a few layouts, maybe copy one of our prototypes, and boom, you have your app with your data. So this feature that we're going to talk about today is about GitHub and App Builder. And the idea is we went over in the last webinar, there's 3 ways to get code out of the App Builder. One of them is just copy paste. Konstantin will show you a code preview today where you can just copy code and paste wherever you want. You can download a zip file of the entire project, or you can create a new GitHub repo and push the code to the new GitHub repo or synchronize it to an existing repo. The whole point is we will continue to work on the developer story. So how does a developer do their work? How do they want to be efficient with code? What source control systems do they use? Already on Konstantin's backlog, he has Azure as another endpoint for code repository. So those things will come in the future. Today, we're going to focus on GitHub. And so with that, I'm going to end the slides. I'm going to focus on the Q&A. Konstantin, I will let you share your screen. I'm going to stop my share. You can share your screen and you can kick off a demo.
Thank you very much, Jason. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are, from me as well. So I am sharing the App Builder running live right now, and I already have created an application from one of the rich preset templates that we offer for users to get started with. And that's because I'm not going to focus so much on the experience of actually creating the app as much as the experience that the developer gets once the app is already in conception and they want to get to see the code that comes out of it. Now, the simplest thing that I can show you first is you can go into the preview mode of the app and you will see a lot of the code for the views already. Like you'll be able to see the component HTML that gets generated from our code generation service. You're going to be able to see the TypeScript definition for that component, as well as the CSS that comes out of it. But that technically is not the entire code output, because as I ship through components, you can see like each of the components for this application. I can see those specific component definitions. And if you've already used the app builder, you know that previously this button that we have up here at the top was just generating an entire zip file, which is a full code repository, for a full Angular code repository with everything preset. Like it is like an Angular CLI generated application with an index HTML with an app component and then with different components inside. It does have a preset commands for static code analysis that is getting run on the application. It gets with preset test commands, everything that you would get from a CLI generated project. And actually, the base of the application gets generated with our Ignite UI CLI. So that's why you get the full repository, and then you get additional component generation on top of this repository that you have. But now the primary action from this button is no longer generating the zip file. The primary action is actually to take you to a generation that gets synced with source control. Our initial implementation was GitHub because it's very popular. It's public. You can push your source code there. Angular as a framework lives there. Ignite UI for Angular, where the components for the app builder come from, also lives on GitHub. And in here, the default option is to generate a new repository, because that's the most common use case that we see. Like you start a new application, you most probably want to generate it inside of a new repository. And we're going to create that repository for you. I'm going to show that in a minute. But you also have the option of using existing repositories that you already have on GitHub. Now, in this demo, I'm already logged into GitHub, like through the app builder. But if you're not logged onto GitHub, the initial screen is going to be a pop-up which requires you to authorize our Indigo.Design App Builder application to your GitHub account so that we can enumerate the repositories that you have, and we can also create new repositories. And now I'm going to call this repository a GitHub demo repository. I'm going to make it public so that it's visible to everyone. I can even add a description. And I cannot type fast, so I'm just going to click generate for you to see what happens. Now, the repository is set up already, and the next step is to push an initial commit to this repository. So that means that now we have a blank repository, and we need to push some code into it, right? So this is going to trigger the initial code generation of the whole repository with everything that I already have as views, as components, and so on and so forth into this repository. And let's call this feature my initial commit. And let's publish that. So this is going to be a little slower process because it goes through the code gen, and then after generating all of the files, it creates an initial commit towards the GitHub repository. And in another window, I have GitHub opened. Oh, actually, I can even see it from here because we generate a link for you. And so you see underneath my repositories, that's another feature that I probably should mention. We allow you to even choose from organizations that that you belong to, and that you have the capability to creating repositories inside. You can create a repository inside an organization directly through the Indigo.Design App Builder. And I have this repository with my initial commit already synced. And as you can see, this does look like a regular Angular repository, like a full-blown app. And inside, I do have, the source folder with my main TS, index TS, then assets, environments, my app folder. And inside the app folder, I do have the different components that there are to this application, with the general app component and then with the different views separated by subcomponents. So now let's show what happens when I subsequently continue to work with my project, because that's very important. We created the integration with GitHub because we wanted to be able to allow users of the Indigo.Design App Builder to do incremental development on top of their designs, and to be able to apply those incremental these incremental developments as seamlessly as possible, like with as little effort as possible on top of the already generated code that they have. And so if I make changes to this project, like let's say something small, I'm going to add a dialog component here. And, for the sake of the demo, I'm going to bind this dialog to my list, to my button that is for the lists. So open, close the dialog window. Now I have made changes to the project. Now, if I generate and download the app again, I'm just going to get the full-blown zip with all of the previous components and with the modification that I've done to the project. But if I do this, again, the default option, the app builder already knows that I'm linked to a GitHub repository with this project. And so the dialog that pops up no longer asks me to create a repository. It asks me to actually generate a pull request to the existing repository. And it does some default like branch name, because it's going to create a new branch, which then it's going to pull request to the main branch that we have in the repository. And it does generate some commit message. So I'm going to call this adding a confirmation dialog. I'm going to click publish so that I show you what happens inside the GitHub repository. And while it's doing that, I am not going to map this repository to my local machine and then npm install and then run the app to show you what happens, because that's going to take a while. But I already have a similar repository set up, which I'm going to show how exactly things work in terms of the working app and, let's say, a Visual Studio Code editor. And so I have this pull request. Oh, and by the way, on this browser, it says I'm not signed in right now. I don't know how that happens, because I'm obviously signed in. Anyways, it's a public thing in the GitHub repository, so I can see the pull request even as an anonymous user. And you see that after adding the dialog, only the changes that were done with the additional dialog are being pulled into my repository. It's not like a whole lot of new generated code. It's just those pieces that I added. And this is really the value. Like this example should show you how sophisticated the code generation that we have is, because it really brings down the changes to what you need and what you would write as a developer. And this thing is clean. It's not some garbage code that gets generated. It really is what you would do as a developer inside the actual Angular application. So I do have the pull request here. Now, as I said, I have the same application, almost the same, already running in VS Code, and I've already npm installed it, and I've started the application. Now, maybe it's a good idea to switch here. So I'm done with this part. How do I make this bar hide? It used to auto hide, but now it doesn't. Anyways. So let me open this ready demo. See, it's the same. It's just I've switched the theme, and I've also changed the already logged in user to a login button, which I've added a login dialog for. So if we look at this application running from VS Code, you see it's interactable from the initial things that are created by the template that we have. And the modification that I've done, it's like I've written zero code on top of it. Everything is done through the app builder, spawns a login window, right? And that's pretty much the only change apart from the theme switch that I've done to this repository. And this repository is actually living, I have it open right here. So, yep, it's the previous repo that I've created. Just so I, just so I show that I haven't made any other changes, merged the pull requests that I've done from the app builder, and I've done a README update. Yep, that's it. Actually, I haven't even merged the last pull request. Anyways, that doesn't really matter. So I already have this synced to the latest version. Let's create some changes on top of this repository to show you how this will apply, to the GitHub project and how I'm going to get the change inside the Visual Studio Code. So I have this other master view. Let's rename this to registration. Okay. And I have some test cards done here. I'm going to remove those. I'm going to reuse a UI part that I have in another project. So I have this registration window. I'm going to copy it. Move to the ready demo. And here, I'm going to set center. And this one, I'm going to set the height to 500 pixels. Okay. And nope, almost there. So, by the way, did I want it, bro? Anyways, so I'm going to go back to my login view. And right here where it says not registered, say navigate this to registration. Okay, I've made some changes now. Let's generate this app. It's already, as I said, in my test repo that I just showed. And I'm adding a registration view. Let's click update. By the way, this is going to update my existing pull request. You saw how the app builder recognized that I don't have that I have a pull request which is not merged. It updated that pull request. So right here, yeah, I did a renaming of my application. So it's going to rename my project setup. So here there are some changes which I actually, that's a really cool thing. I expected to get only the changes from the registration view, and I forgot that before the demo, I
renamed the application, so it's easy for me to find. But that's still cool. You know, you see, after you rename the registration, the application, we you know, pull those changes also, you know, in your setup. So I have all of these changes now. The new master view is now called registration. So it deleted my old master view, the one with the cards that I had. It created the new one, and it added like the component as well as, you know, the theming for it and everything else. So for this one, let's click merge. I'm going to delete that branch. Now let's go back into my VS Code. And oh, okay, I didn't need another terminal. It immediately picked up that I have new changes. I'm going to sync those changes. Yeah. Oh, that's something that I was going to show afterwards. Okay. And my running application now is going to refresh. Okay, I do have the application refreshed. I'll click login, we go to not registered. Okay, that didn't work. Oh, I know why. I forgot to change something inside the actual definition. So right here, we do have a blank URL, which I needed to remove. Okay, let's do something. Let's not do it inside the app builder. Let's go in the app. And pretty sure, let me see where the login was. I think it was in the master view. Yes. So should be right here at the bottom, right? Okay. Let's remove those things. Voila, I do have the registration here as a navigation. And now what I can do is, okay, I made these changes to the code. Okay, and then I'm going to push it to main. All right, I have this change in. And basically that was my demo. So
that's awesome. So there was a question about GitLab. Maybe allowing GitLab server for either the cloud-based or the on-prem version of Indigo.Design.
So GitLab is something that would be pretty straightforward for us to implement since we already have the GitHub integration. Now, by default, the project that we generate is a Git-based project. It does have a Git, a .git folder in it. And so anything that is Git-based, we can pretty easily integrate with. And it's just a matter of timing and priorities.
Yep. So we would, yeah, we're going to email the recording, William. So yeah, we would want to get more customers asking for GitLab. So Larry says, if you publish it from App Builder to GitHub, pull and edit with VS Code, add charts, then pull back into the App Builder for additional work without losing charts and customizations in the VS Code. So if the question is, will we go back into App Builder? The answer is no.
So I wouldn't necessarily say no. We don't do it at the moment. Basically,
the code generation service right now is one way, meaning you request from the app builder for the service to generate the code, and then this code is being sent to GitHub. We technically do not persist at the current stage. We don't persist the code for the specific application on our server. It's just generated on demand. But that doesn't necessarily have to be true in the future. So even here, when you click preview, this is an on-demand generation.
I see what you're saying. It's on-demand generation, and we could just pull that right from GitHub.
Yeah. So we actually plan for this specific window to include a Monaco editor in the future. Now, and I'm not making a commitment what exactly in the future means right now, but if we integrate the Monaco editor, then for us, it would be necessary to actually have the code of the app in a stateful, living in a stateful way on our backend. And so that would also allow us to sync back from GitHub.
Cool.
So the answer is currently it's not supported, but it most probably will be supported in the future.
All right. That's great. And I just launched a poll for everyone. It has 7 questions. If you've attended previous webinars, some of them are the same. I think we added a couple new ones. You know, what we're doing with these is taking the Q&A as well and putting it into feature requests. Now, right now, we don't have a place in GitHub to track feature requests for Indigo. Do we, Konstantin? Like where people can go say, yes, please, upvote?
Okay. We don't. And I don't know why we haven't created it so far. Now that you mention it.
Yeah, so maybe what we'll do is we'll add that, and then in the follow-up emails over the next week or so, we'll include links to GitHub where you can add feature requests, where you can submit bugs. It'll just make the whole thing a lot easier as far as that goes. But yeah, if you're on the webinar, try to answer our poll questions, because the poll questions really help us in the future. Sorry, there's so many today. I'll try to make it less next time. And then the other thing is, I'll bring back up the slides. Let me just comment on the next webinar. So let me run my slides. I will share my screen.
Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you. Share screen. Okay, so you can see my PowerPoint, Konstantin?
Yep.
All right, cool. So I think everyone got the point with what's going on here in terms of GitHub integration. This is a really exciting feature, and it really kind of flows into the developer story. Our next session will be on connecting real data in App Builder. And so how do I connect to data, show real data in text boxes, repeaters, etc. And then we'll talk a little bit about the roadmap there, because we're actually in the midst of doing some cool improvements on the entire data story. Not quite there yet, but we will be in the next couple of months, 2 to 3 months. And we will also show, or we'll show what we have today in terms of REST and OData support. Obviously go to Indigo.Design, log in and start a trial to play with this stuff. And I also want to just go back to the first slide here in case you want to email Konstantin or myself for additional questions, follow-ups, things that we didn't ask in the Q&A. Go ahead and ask through email if you'd like. We also set up a Discord server for Indigo Design questions. We're going to start sharing that in our emails, and there's really no one on it yet, in terms of customers or prospects, but over time it'll grow. But it's a great place for you just to add a question. Someone on the product team, myself, will answer it. because everyone on the product team is on the server. You'll get an answer from someone at Infragistics. But with that, I want to thank Konstantin for his demo today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you for answering our poll questions. I really appreciate it. And we will follow up via email as well with a link to the webinar to share with your team. And we will see you in the next webinar. So thank you very much. And thanks again, Konstantin. See you, everybody.